Welcome to the Bethel Church Sermon of the Week. For more information about this podcast and other resources, visit ibethel.org.
All right, good morning, everyone. Yes, it's still morning. All right, well, as you can tell, we're doing things a little differently this morning. Obviously, we've had quite a situation happening for Redding, for Shasta County, and we felt it would be good to turn this into kind of big family room and have a conversation about what's going on, what we can do, give you guys some updates, and hopefully paint a picture a little bit of what our involvement can be immediately, as well as the next 30 days, and then honestly the next couple of years. And so we're going to take some time today to go over a bunch of stuff. And we just want to take some time to thank. We have so many people that have been helping just tirelessly for thousands of hours in the last week alone, which we'll talk about. I want to take some time to thank a bunch of people as well. But Dad's going to kick us off. Go for
it. You'd think as much as I use microphones, I'd still remember how to turn it on. I think it's that delusional thing that's going on in our brains right now. Somebody ran over a mailbox in your neighborhood just because they were delusional. Anyway, all right, I'm back. Nice to see you. We have been so impacted by just the incredible cooperation of people. Not only you guys here from Bethel, you do it all the time, but you've stepped it up to another level this last week. And in our whole city, we're just so thrilled. Most every church that we know of has really stepped up to the plate and is really serving well. The various community organizations, it's just encouraging. And I was thinking earlier about a verse, a promise that I've held on to for, goodness, probably 35 years anyway. Psalms 110, verse 3 says, people will volunteer freely in the day of your power. People will volunteer freely in the day of your power. And what is happening really is a sign in the natural of a display of God's power being released across our city. We all have certain defaults in how we think, what we turn to in crisis, what we look for in a problem, and how we process. And for me, when something comes up, whether it's personal, nationwide, our city, whatever it might be, I immediately go to the Word and I begin to read till I can find a place of peace, find a place of comfort in what God says. Hopefully, eventually find answers and solutions, but that's not my first question. My first question is that place of peace where I have a sense of the heart and mind of God regarding an issue. I also, in fact, what I encourage people to do is pay attention to the things that God has highlighted in His Word to you over the last year. Anything that stands out. He has a great habit of preparing us ahead of time for things that we didn't know was coming. He is not the author of the crisis. The Bible teaches us, Jesus said that the enemy came to kill, steal, destroy. And this destruction was not caused by a loving Father. But as I mentioned last week, you heard the voice of the devourer for several days. You're about to hear the voice of the restorer for months on end. And God is going to restore at such a higher level, a greater place than anything we've seen happen. And so we just encourage everybody, you know, some of you have great faith for what's about to happen. Others of you are just holding on. Whatever condition you're in, just make sure you're facing the right direction. Just be leaning into what God might say and might do. And but one of the other things that I do is I read over prophetic words. I've told you this for years. Words that have been given to me through the years. I save them. I have files in my office. I have files on my iPad, my computer. And when I was flying home last Friday, 9 days ago now, from England, knowing of the firestorm that had hit our area, I opened my iPad and just began to search the files of prophetic words. Maybe some of them I haven't read in a long time, but I like to do that to find what the Lord has said that He knew ahead of time, what He has said that would help me in my present situation. So I just want to encourage you, just review what he's been saying, because he never leaves us. He is not, if he is ever silent, it's not punishment. If he's silent, it's because he's already spoken and he wants us to find it. He wants us to rediscover that which he's already said. One last thing I'll mention. The disciples were having a rough day, and they were pretty ticked off at a particular city, and they were hoping Jesus would give them permission to destroy the whole city by calling down fire, which somehow this seems to relate to our present situation. And his disciples, James and John, when they saw this, when they saw the rejection of the city, said, Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them, just as Elijah did? Jesus turned and rebuked them, and he said, you don't know what manner of spirit you are of. In other words, you're going to have to go to a different anointing if you're going to do that, because that's not what the Spirit of God is doing. He then went on, he says, remember, Jesus Christ is perfect theology. He is revealing the heart of the Father without blemish. He says, for the Son of Man did not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. There's somebody else that's called the destroyer, and it's not Jesus. And Jesus has come, and he's giving us opportunity to be infectious with hope, not in a shaming way, but infectious with hope and promise as we see what God's going to do. We are locked into a 2-year process right now. We've said yes to a 2-year process to see things not just healed, but restored to a place greater than before.
Eric and I were in Romania when the fire broke out, because we were in England and switching to Romania on the Friday. And we were looking at everything we could to get news about what was going down, and you could tell that it was growing and growing. And even in the midst of disaster, when I was scouring social media to find out what was going on, I could see so much kindness and compassion and generosity from the moment that this began. And I was very impressed by it, just from people opening up their homes to people offering to help others. And then we got on the ground. We got home at midnight on Monday. And once we just started getting on the ground and talking to people, it just continued. And I was so impressed and overwhelmed by people's kindness. Even one of our girls' friends came over, and they've got evacuated from their neighborhood. And they're like, yeah, we're staying at a house. There's 15 of us there, a couple different families. And I'm thinking, wow, that family opened up their home. And it was story after story. Many of you have housed people in your homes or have given them things. And it's amazing. And I just want to say that I think it's so powerful, those 3 things: compassion, kindness, and generosity. And I do believe, we talk about restoration, I believe that those are the things that are going to usher in restoration. And so things that are inside of our hearts, inside of our hands, that are really going to help just be really powerful in what God is doing. And Bill mentioned this morning, we were praying in pre-service prayer about, Bethel in the natural is a distribution center. We're funneling goods and then giving them away. And I just want to say that us as believers that have Christ in us, we are a distribution center as well. Bill was praying that. I'm like, that's right, we distribute peace. We distribute hope. We distribute comfort. We have the resources of heaven. And so in this time, for those there, and we're all in different places, but those of us who have that to give away, we need to be giving that and giving it generously. And I believe that as we give it away, that God will even increase who he is inside of us. He will increase in different measures in us, but also in our city. And so I just bless each of you just to be extravagant in your peace, that wherever you go, you have more than enough for yourself. And there are people around us that need it, and some of you in this room need it, and I just pray that we would be strength to you. It's the beauty of being family, that when some of us are in places of weakness and vulnerability, that other of us can cover and step in and cover each other. And so it's really beautiful that in the midst of such a disaster, that I've experienced so many beautiful moments at the same time. It's this interesting yet beautiful time for us. In light of us being family and then all the stuff that we've walked through, we want to take just a moment in this service just to kind of do a check-in, because some of us have been devastated and lost homes. Some of us have been just displaced and devastated and had to figure out the last few days and week being in someone else's space. And others of us get, we go back and you have a home, but there's no homes around yours, or walking through other people through traumatic things. I just want to take a moment and just have us check in with someone around us. So in this time, what I'm asking, there's just one question I want us to answer, is how has this week been for you? If you just take for a moment, and a lot of us even maybe haven't even asked ourselves that question. If you have a family member around you, you're welcome to just process with them. If there's someone around you that you don't know and you're happy to introduce yourself and to talk with them, that'd be great. And there's no expectation to share your deepest, darkest emotional feelings. But whatever you're interested in, however you want to answer that question. But I would just love that everyone who's here this morning gets a moment just to check in. And then after that, we're just going to pray for each other. And so we'll just take, if everyone takes 3 minutes to answer. What I experienced this week is one of our families that lost a home. We were just talking. They were sharing some of the sad parts of things that happened, and there were tears. And then they were sharing some of the funny things that happened as they were, leaving their homes and what they left or took. And as they were talking, I was just realizing this is so healing. It's healing for you to share, and it's healing for me just to listen. And I get to be a part of the healing as I engage. And so that's why I wanted to just take a moment for us as family, just to kind of do a check-in, and that as someone's sharing that we're getting the opportunity to listen. So if we just took 3 minutes each to answer that question, and then while someone's talking, that we just listen. So what I ask now, if you can just find someone that's sitting around you and ask, how has this week been for you? And give them about 3 minutes to answer, and then I'll switch and let the other person share. Sound good? Okay, go. Okay, I want to get us back together. One more moment here. One more moment. Now I want to lead into just a moment of prayer. I want to give you just an instruction before I have you pray for each other. I think it's also really important in this time that we count our blessings, because counting our blessings helps us to be aware of what God has given us. We are a very rich people, regardless of where we're at in this week. And it's just, I want to make sure that we have just taking a moment to remember what God has given us. And so if you can just take a moment right now and just think, what blessings do you have to count right now? What are you thankful for? And then some of us might have to dig a little harder than others, but what was it that you have to thank God for? And just if you can think of one thing right now. Now what I'd like you to do is I want you to get back with the people that you were listening to and sharing with, is tell them what your blessing is that you're counting. And then I want you to pray for each other. I want every single person who's come in here today to get actually a hand put on them and someone that actually blessed them and prayed for them. So just take 2 minutes, just a short time, and get back with the same people, share your blessing, and then pray for each other. Okay, go. Okay. Now, if you guys can wrap up your prayers, I want to let you know a few other resources available. Actually, let me just finish by praying over each of you. Thank you, Lord, that you're our source of life, that you're our protector. Thank you, God, you are so good. And I just pray for every single person here, Lord, that you would meet them right where they're at, that they would have more than enough for everything that they face today. I thank you for your grace. I pray that they have more than enough grace for today and for all the things that they get to navigate. And I just thank you, God, for your blessings in our lives. Yeah, we love you and we trust you. And we just ask you for just wisdom for today and the place that we get to serve in our city and help in rebuilding. Yeah, amen, amen. If it would help you to talk to someone more after this, because we're all experiencing different things, and we want to make sure that you're taken care of because you're part of our family. Afterwards, in the hospitality suite, which is directly behind me but upstairs, so if you go out these doors and go all the way down and go up the stairs, there's a room, the hospitality suite. We have people in there that are prepared, some of our counselors, some of our ministry team, that if you need help walking through just the stuff from the disaster this week and trauma, please go on up there. They would love to talk with you and pray with you. Everyone is welcome. And then next door to that, in room 212, we have a resource room. If you have lost your home here, we want to check in with you. We want to connect with you. First of all, just to check in, take care of you. Secondly, we do want to be giving money to everyone who's lost their homes. We want to make sure you've gotten that. And then thirdly, we are offering ash outs. It's going through, if you want help going through your ashes, see if there's stuff that we can help find. We want to make sure that you have opportunity or access to that resource. So any resources that we have, we want to make sure that you have access to them. So going to room 212 would be one way to make sure that anything that we have, that you have as well as our family. After that, as well, after the service, we have Mercy Chefs who have been here all week long, you guys. They are sitting on the front row. If you can stand up, please. This is Mercy Chefs right here.
Come on. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Amazing.
You talk about kindness and generosity and caring. These guys have come from, been here all week long and feeding people out of our kitchen. Anyone who has had need of a meal, they've been just feeding all of our volunteers, people in our city. And I just want to say thank you for coming. Thank you for serving us so well.
Yep. Thank you.
And they're going to be leaving here in just a moment because we're also offering or opening up the kitchen right after the service for anyone who's still in need because of the fire. Please go back and get a warm meal if that would bless you in this time. Our kitchen will be open after this, and then we're open all the way till 7 o'clock tonight. And so for a meal right after the service. And then after that, we're going to open up our distribution center. We have tons of resources that have come through our hands, and that anyone who's been affected by the fire and has need gets the opportunity to go through. And you're our family and you're here, so after your meal, go through the distribution center. It's really been an honor to be able to serve those in our city.
Yeah.
We want to serve you as well.
Yep. You know, we want to take some time to give you an idea of what's been happening here the last week. As many of you know, when the fire happened, we were not allowed to host anything here in the evacuation site or shelter because of the proximity to the danger zone, as well as there's only one road in and one road out. This is not a place you want to be trapped when a fire is coming through. How many would agree with that? Yeah. So, just in case some of you are wondering, I know we communicated it last week, but just to let you know, that was the reason. But once we were approved to be a site to help, Salvation Army approached us to ask if we would host and handle a distribution center. So this whole campus for the last, honestly, I think 7-8 days now, has been a bona fide distribution center underneath Salvation Army. And if you haven't had a chance to come up here at all this week, sorry, I'm getting text. Sorry. I'm getting certain.
I got it, Tom.
We got it? Okay. All right. Sorry. What do we call that? Conference on the mound, mid-game. Very good. This week, we've had to learn to be very flexible, I'll tell you that. But this whole campus has been turned into a distribution center. It's been unbelievable what's taken place here. Our staff, our volunteers. How many of you helped volunteer this past week in the distribution center? My goodness, look around the room. You guys are awesome. It's been phenomenal. And to give you an idea for those of you that are not aware of what a distribution center is that it starts in this lobby right over here, and anyone that's affected by the fire, as far as they've had to evacuate, they've lost everything, any way they've been affected, they come here, and they are met in the lobby over here, and they're assigned a host. So one person, a volunteer, is assigned per family or per person, depending on who comes in the door. And that host basically gets a shopping cart, a literal shopping cart in the hallway, and they go into the east-west room, and in there is all the food and supplies, packaged grocery bags of food as well as extra food in there. And anyone can come in. They can come in every day if they need. It's not a one-time visit. So people coming back as well that just need food. And then they take the shopping cart and they go into the great room. And in the great room, you have everything from deodorant to underwear, to women's underwear, men's underwear, clothing, pillow, blankets, mask, hygiene product. I mean, it's a full-blown grocery store, to be honest with you. And there's one gal, there's one host. She's 11 years old, and she was assigned to this family, and she was so bubbly and happy. And Jason was telling us that this family, as you can imagine, is just in shock of losing their home or being evacuated and not sure what they needed. And so this little 11-year-old girl went through each box and said, do you need this? Do you have any children in your family? And in one family in particular, the mother said, yeah, I have a 13-year-old son. And the little girl goes, 13-year-old boys are stinky. And you need 2 deodorants for him. We have thousands of stories like that, and it's been unbelievable just to see the bond and the connection from the host to these families. I get emotional when I think about it. And they go through the great room, and then when they go down this hallway, Mercy Chefs has a hot meal waiting for them. Some excellent food, by the way. They've been cooking. I'm going to give you numbers of how much food we're talking about. And then at the end of the hallway in one of the BCS classrooms, Leslie Taylor, amongst a team of people, have been in there tirelessly, hours and hours all week for anyone that wants prayer. They need counseling. They need just emotional processing. And so people have the freedom to go in there and spend some time with her and the team. It's just been unbelievable. And then the host takes them all the way back out to their vehicle with the shopping cart and unloading everything into their car. It's been one of the most phenomenal things that's happened. And one little boy that came through with his family hadn't talked since the fire. I think it was 3 days after, if I remember correctly. Hadn't talked at all. And by the time they got to the toy table in the great room, the little boy spoke for the first time in days. The mom said, yeah. The mom said, this is the first time my son had spoken in days because he was traumatized from the fire. And so just so many stories like that. But I want to give you some ideas of some statistics of what's happened this last week. We've had 3,526 guests come through the distribution center in the last week. We've had 2,837 volunteers that have helped this week as well. It's amazing. And this is the fun statistic. There's 10,976 volunteer hours have been given in the last week. The reason why that's important is because what happens in a disaster like this, when organizations keep track of their volunteer hours, it's submitted to the state and to the federal government of how many volunteer hours were given, and the government reimburses a certain rate per volunteer hour back to the county. And so it's not Bethel. They're not reimbursing us. So make sure no one gets that rumor out. The money does not come to us. It goes back to the county. So when you're volunteering for this past week and the coming days, which we're going to talk about, you're actually not helping the immediate situation, you're actually helping the county recover financially for the rebuilding. So it's a two double win situation. We've had nearly 800,000 items come through, donated to this distribution center alone. And we have two amazing people in this room right now, Convoy of Hope. Would you guys stand? These guys right here. And thank you guys for parking your truck at the bottom of the hill. So the first word we see entering church today was hope. Brilliant. You should leave your truck here because I love it. So, but these guys, upon the disaster happened, these guys drove 36 hours straight from Springfield, Missouri to get the first load out here. And And since then, you guys are bringing 3 semi-truckloads. They brought 3 semi-truckloads of supplies and goods in the last week. We've had Rayleigh's bring a semi-truckload. If you notice outside in the parking lot right now, we have a Safeway have donated for us to use a refrigeration semi-truck trailer that's out there as well. We've had, let's see here. We've had all kinds of, Chris mentioned a lot of organizations that have been giving money to this. A lot of churches today that we've been in contact with, we're taking an offering this morning and we're sending it away. Hundreds of thousands of dollars are being given. And if you have anybody that's asking how they can help, if they live outside the area, just tell them finance is the biggest way to help right now. Because we can reallocate the fund. And if they want to help, we'll put the website on the screen after the service. But it's bethel.com/carfire, CARR fire. And again, that'll be on the screen. That's where you can sign up to volunteer, and that's where you can sign up to donate. 100% goes to and the 100% of the money that comes in go to the relief efforts. And so that's happening to the victim, to the victim and the people that lost their home. A couple nights ago, we did, I want to give you a picture. How many understand that this is not a 1-week situation? We have people are telling us from outside that this is a 2-year journey for you guys. And this isn't just a 2-year journey for Bethel. This is a 2-year journey for our city. There are organizations, high school, businesses, other churches are throwing all their hand on the deck on this one. And so we are just a part of the pie on this. But right now, we are in what's called the relief phase, which we're in that right now. That's immediate need, food, water, shelter, and any of the stuff around that. We are getting ready to transition. We'll keep relief going as long as it's needed, but we're getting ready to transition in what's called a recovery phase. And that is roughly a 30-day window. And the recovery phase involves a couple things that we're going to be offering. The first thing that we're working on right now is called Ash Outs. Candace mentioned that. 2 nights ago, we had a training at Twin View campus. 300 of you and 300 people from the city came out for an Ash Out training. And what an Ash Out training is basically you have to wear basically hazmat suits, respirators, goggles, fully covered, and non-breathable suits because of each home site that's been burned is a hazardous waste site, the hazmat site. All this chemical is very toxic, and so we have to be equipped a certain way. And then we offer our services to people that need their homes to be sifted through to see if anything valuable made it through the fire. And we're going to start deploying teams tomorrow for that. Some teams went out yesterday. I think some teams are out right now. And we're going to start deploying more teams out tomorrow. So if you want to be trained in Ash Out, pay attention to, if you want to help in any way, there's 3 main ways to stay in the loop. First one is social media, Bethel's Instagram account and Bethel's Facebook account. We're going to keeping those things updated. The bethel.com/carfire, that page is a main place to be updated on how to help, how to volunteer, how to donate, as well as other things around that. And then the third way is church email. If you're on our church email, so there's 3 main channels of communication that we'll be sending out. We may do another Ash Out training in the next week or so, not promising it. We're going to see how many we can do with the 300 people that got trained a couple nights ago. The other thing that's coming up in this 30-day window has to do with debris cleanup. And again, that's another way we can help different homeowners and help the city as well. And there'll be more things we're announcing, so keep your ears open. And I want you to change your mindset from a volunteer for 1 day, 1 week. We need to create a volunteer army for a month and then looking into the 2-year plan as well. And we'll be communicating that to you as well. And so just how many are ready to adopt a volunteer mindset for this next season? Because it's an amazing opportunity to help rebuild our city and to do our part in the larger effort. And what we want to do now is I want to transition. We have Leslie. Leslie's been a part of our team for a very long time, and she has been so helpful as her and her team of people have been in the prayer emotional processing room. And we wanted to address something in regards to all of us have been affected by this disaster to varying degrees. And the emotional part, the processing, the trauma that comes with it, it's really important that we're all on the same page. And so I'm going to read a question to Leslie, and then she's going to walk us through how to help us move forward in this area. Leslie, we've just had a disaster happen in our own city, and all of us are affected by it to varying degrees. Everyone experienced this fire differently, some more than others. Would you be able to walk us through to help have an understanding for what is happening and what may come in the days ahead?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. All of us are aware that everyone has experienced this differently, huh? We have people who've lost everything. We have people who were displaced and now back. We have people who are still displaced. And we have people that were on the east side of town that were affected less. And each one of those groups has within it people who have different levels of resiliency and are in different life stages. One of the things we say about disaster is that it falls right wherever people are in their lives. And some people are already overwhelmed with their life. Most of us have been there at some time or another. And that happened at this time for some people, that they're just barely keeping their head above water, and then disaster happened. Some people are in a time of resiliency and strength, and we're so thankful for that. And we're certainly thankful for all of those whose homes were spared and those who have that resiliency, because that's really needed now as well. I wanted to kind of map out for you a really quick picture of what is typical, and that is that right now what we're in is sort of what they call the honeymoon phase, in that there's all sorts of services here, right? And there's hope, and people are finding out, I didn't lose this, or we're safe. And it's a time where we have a lot of hope. And what can happen, and I think we're in the process of moving from it, is that reality starts setting in. The shock kind of starts wearing off, and now you start thinking about, how much insurance coverage did I have? And people are starting to remember the things that they lost, and just picking up the pieces. And it can be a pretty good period of time where people are sifting through that, and that's been kind of labeled by some as sort of a period of disillusionment and discouragement, where kind of reality sinks in, we might say. And it's normal. It's normal. But then where we want to move to, and people do, is that rebuilding place. And we're so, I think we're just thrilled in this community to see the support and the money that's pouring in, because we believe we're going to build back strong, right? And this process is several years, and it's kind of can be a rocky road for people. And I like to tell people they're going to be okay. They're going to be okay. But sometimes it feels really bad between now and okay, right? We're believing they're going to be better than okay. Better than okay. Yeah. So in that building, you will sometimes see people take dips, get re-traumatized by different things. We already heard about that. Some spot fires came out and really, really were traumatic for people who had just come through fires in their neighborhood. So just know that's kind of the overall picture. I kind of want to speak to how we live with each other, both kind of taking care of ourselves, and a big question we get is, how do we take care of people? How do we love people that are going through this? So I just kind of real quickly want to touch on that. One of the things, I have a pretty good bit of experience and a pretty good bit of training, and I find myself still bumbly when I encounter someone that's lost everything. So know that that's so normal too. And I would say give yourself grace. Give yourself lots of grace right now. And if you're on the receiving end of somebody kind of sticking their foot in their mouth and not maybe saying the best thing to you, it's just such a season to give grace as well. It's just grace, grace. It's needed. I mean, like every 15 minutes right now, it's needed, right? Right. For yourself, let me say that it's real prevalent. I would say maybe 100% of everyone has something they're feeling guilty about. It's just there. It's in the air. Feeling guilty that you didn't handle something better, feeling guilty you didn't get something out, feeling guilty that your house survived, feeling guilty that you can't do more. Pick your poison. It seems like we just look for and have to find something to feel guilty about, and we need to be aware of that, because it's not from God. It's not from God. And being aware of it means we can run it off and say, no, won't partner with you. Give yourself grace. And if you're struggling with that, find someone to speak that over you, okay? What I like to say to myself is, it's real easy, and you'll hear each other say, I'm so tired. I just don't know if I have any more to give. And those can be truths in reality, and it's okay to be there. But what I found myself saying is, I have more than enough. I have more than enough. When I'm feeling kind of, because our source is limitless, right? He's limitless. So speaking over yourself, I have more than enough. And making sure when you go to bed at night that you release all the offenses that have crept in, that you may not even, until you stop and think about it, there's so much opportunity right now. There is a swirl. Jordan calls it a swirl. We're all new, aren't we? I mean, even those of us that might consider ourselves disaster experts, we're new because here it is in our backyard, and we're learning all the time. So give yourself room, give others room, and just clear the slate every night and start every morning off fresh. In the same way, let me speak to those of you that are barely keeping your head above water. That's okay too. It's okay too. You get to be right there. And we don't expect one thing more of you. We just want to tell you that we'll be beside you. And I love how Bill said this last Sunday. We have enough hope for you. So you have permission to be right where you are. For some of you, that guilt is going to look like, I felt it in the room when Candace shared that the family that has 15 people in their home. I just felt like some of you instantly felt guilty that you aren't doing that. And I want to say that some of you will have an empty room in your house that you really aren't supposed to give out. You need to know your limits. So while everyone is being stretched, and I encourage you to be stretched and let God stretch you beyond where you've ever been before, also, it's important that you know your limits. With God, get with a friend, because some of you don't need anyone in your home. Some of you need to have your home as a sanctuary. Some of you need to have your home to yourself right now, okay? So there's no rule and there's no judgment in it. And we just break off shame. We're not going to walk in shame in this thing. We're going to walk in victory and we're going to walk in His glory, right? Okay, let me see what I want to make sure. Ministering to people who've lost everything. Just being there. Showing up. That's everything. Many of us, when we have someone in front of us, we know we can't fix what's going on with them, but there's something in us that wants to fix them in the moment, right? We want to fix how they're feeling. Just let go of that. We don't have to fix anybody. When I very first was employed at Bethel, I ran pastor on call, and the Lord said to me, I'm their Savior, not you. Yeah. So remember that. The next thing He said too was, and neither is Bethel. Okay? So just being with people and listening is so good. You don't have to have answers. There's a lot of questions. Even things, theology, we think we have all figured out. In times like this, get kind of messy. And Bill talked about his brain, and it's so true. Most of us are walking around with a little bit of a fog. Everybody, if you notice people driving around, it's kind of scary, actually. Right? You've experienced it. Yeah, I know. They're like zombies, huh? And I felt that way too. You have to like extra concentrate. And that's true. So think about those who've lost everything. Their brains are completely traumatized. And let me just add a caveat. People who have experienced what we might call less may be just as traumatized, depending on where they are. It just is true. We have, obviously, a special affection for those who have lost everything. They've lost everything they own, or they've lost family members. But just knowing, being with them and listening and letting them tell their story, whatever that looks like, it helps their brain actually reprogram and get back on track. Okay?
I saw somebody made a comment, in fact, I mentioned it to you last week, those of you that were here, that material loss is not a tragedy. And I thought, what a dumb statement. If that were true, Jesus wouldn't illustrate Himself as the one who looks for the lost coin. He values everything we value. Of course, there's a perspective, and we seek first the kingdom, there's no question. But Jesus is going to restore things in such a beautiful way. Very thankful.
Thanks for listening to the Sermon of the Week. This weekly podcast is now being translated in several languages. Visit podcasts.ibethel.org.